Next, we have JuneBrain, Samantha Scott. Welcome to the stage.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Samantha Scott, the CEO and founder of JuneBrain. I have a PhD in biomedical engineering. I focus primarily in ophthalmology and neuroimaging. I started JuneBrain about 8 years ago, the same year that I was diagnosed with a nervous system disorder by my eye doctor. And my vision at the time was that the eye would become a common tool to assess not just eye disease, but also neurological disease. And that's now becoming clinical practice. So at JuneBrain, we have now developed the world's most accessible retinal imaging device powered by AI to revolutionize brain and eye health. We are at the last 10% of our journey to market. We're now accelerating towards commercialization. We've developed a $6 million sales pipeline. We have clinically proven and de-risked the device and the AI. And we have spent years developing relationships with strategics in our space. They will serve as our commercialization partners and future acquirers. So the back of the eye, or the retina, is a physiological extension of the brain. So a technology like ours, which is also known as OCT or optical coherence tomography, can be used to monitor not just common eye diseases like glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, but also MS, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's disease. We have found that OCT can be predictive of neurodegeneration and also show signs of neuroprotection. So in addition, changes in the retina have been found that are associated with these diseases have been found to present up to 7 years before the onset of symptoms. And this is critical because delayed diagnosis can result in hundreds of thousands of dollars per patient in medical expenses and lost income. So while OCT is, again, a great measure of neurodegeneration, neuroprotection, it's really only located in specialty eye clinics. This is because it requires a trained technician to operate the device. They typically have a heavy upfront cost, which is a barrier to entry. They're large, usually requiring their own room in the clinic, and it's very difficult for patients with disabilities like myself to use these systems. So our solution is called the NeuroEye. It's a wearable form of OCT where we've combined accessibility with intelligence. So unlike those conventional systems, ours is portable, so it can be used in any setting. It's automated, so it doesn't require a trained technician. It meets and now exceeds the performance of those conventional systems in terms of resolution and speed. And it's driven by a deep learning algorithm on the back end to automate analysis of our software. This algorithm specifically has been trained on over 700 patient data sets, including healthy controls and people with multiple sclerosis, and we're now expanding its capabilities into Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But it automatically segments 8 layers of the retina. The top 2, the ganglion cell interplexiform layer, the retinal nerve fiber layer, those are typically very critical in neurodegenerative disease. So we're able to track longitudinally how those changes occur. And it's also device agnostic, so it can be used in our device as well as devices that are already existing in eye clinics. So we are working on our final commercial system now, but our MVP has been launched across clinical studies. The way it works, a patient wears the headset. It's about 1.5 pounds. Inside is a simple fixation target to help with alignment. Once the patient is aligned, we have a very simple GUI that shows a live view of a pupil camera for eye tracking, as well as a live OCT scan and vasculature in the retina. It can be used laying down at the bedside as well as sitting up, whatever is comfortable for the patient regardless of disability. It's a simple click to acquire images, which again are high resolution, which is critical for neurodegeneration. And then it goes through our AI for automated segmentation and delivers quantitative measurements to the clinician on the spot. It takes around 5 to 10 minutes for the entire clinical exam to be completed. That's including in patients with severe disabilities. Thank you for doing the video. Sorry. Oh, Next slide. So because of our design, we're able to now move OCT into these emergent adjacent markets. And the one with the most immediate demand is neurology. This is because OCT is now formally added to neurodiagnostic criteria, specifically first the McDonald diagnostic criteria for MS. Clinicians can, thank you. Clinicians can stack diagnostic codes, CPT codes, to receive up to $300 per exam per eye, resulting in anywhere from $100,000 to $800,000 in new revenue for the neurology clinic. And again, we have designed our device for use in patients across the disability spectrum, from paralysis to movement disorders to those who are wheelchair bound. So it's well suited for neurology. And ultimately, our goal is improving quality of life. OCT can be deployed in these settings to help with earlier detection, which again, all of you know very well, there are plenty of emerging drugs in the pipeline that will be able to treat Alzheimer's, Parkinson's in the future. Early detection will become increasingly critical. So this year we've come out from under our rock, and we have been exhibiting at conferences across the country, including leading neurology conferences. We've had a lot of excitement from providers. We also had a chance to present some of our clinical data. We've now enrolled over 100 patients across 3 clinical study sites, including a local neurorehabilitation clinic. And we were able to show that we provide 25 to 50% superior image quality to the conventional, our competitor devices on the market. And we also demonstrated high usability among patients. So based on these conferences, we were able to grow our sales pipeline from 1.2 to 6 million in just 3 months. These are qualified leads, clinicians, and labs who are interested in buying our device as soon as it's available. It also includes around 640,000 in research contracts with neurotherapeutic companies who are using OCT as an endpoint in their studies. We also have pilots lined up with MedStar Health System in Maryland across 4 neurology satellite clinics and Johns Hopkins Hospital. And we've built a moat of IP protection. So we have 3 issued patents in the US, 2 owned by JuneBrain, as well as many pending in the EU and Canada, where we also have customers. So we have always involved the community in our R&D. And as a result of that, we have completed over 500 interviews with customers, from patients, clinicians, their staff, to build out our business model and repeatedly validate the need for a system. So based on this, our first go-to market is in research. We can deploy our device and our AI into clinical trials before we have FDA clearance. It will serve as a source of new data to further train our AI, as well as early market validation and early revenue. But once we have 510(k) clearance next year, we will roll out into our beachhead market, which are neurology clinics. And finally, we do have a lot of interest from the eye care community, including being able to add diagnostic measures for neurology in their care settings. So that includes optical retail stores. VisionWorks has shown a lot of interest in us. They're not able to access OCT at the moment, as well as optometry clinics. Our revenue model comes directly from customers as well. I always say they threw ours out the window and told us what to charge them, which is the best way to go. So instead of the heavy upfront cost, we have a revenue share model. So we charge $10,000 as an initial deposit, and then we'll take 20% of reimbursement that the clinic generates each month. So in this way, we can recoup the cost of one device in 5 to 7 months, and then it'll be profit for JuneBrain. And we've already confirmed with CMS and private payers that existing CPT codes cover our device. So with this revenue share model, we're able to become profitable by 2027. And again, we've been building our sales pipeline in order to meet our first year 2026 sales goal of 4.1 million. So I'm now raising a $1 million seed plus round. We've already closed and have committed $912,000, but we can oversubscribe. And we're also offering benefits. It's a strategic time for investors to join, including a 50% tax refund on your investment. In addition to bringing more investors into our round, We are specifically interested in the New Orleans ecosystem. We're always looking for clinical partners to deploy our NeuroEye into real-world settings, but also accessing data sets to make sure that our AI is trained on a diverse population. So if we win 50,000 today, it would actually have a huge impact for us. We are a very capital efficient company. It would allow us to expand to 1 or 2 more additional clinical sites. We would love for those to be here in New Orleans to increase diversity within our studies. And our funds from our round will go specifically towards transfer to manufacturing. We already have our contractor in place and they can scale on the market with us. And it will allow us to deploy units for our first customers. It'll also help us reach our main milestones, which is 510(k) clearance by the end of next year for the device and AI clearance early next year. Those are separate FDA submissions. And finally, again, we have developed relationships with strategics in our space. They have a history of buying companies like JuneBrain, either before FDA clearance or immediately after. We have demoed our device to their M&A teams, and they see us as the next generation of AI in order to move into these untapped markets. We have an awesome team. I'm happy to share more, as well as a very hands-on advisory board. They are KOLs in the neurology and ophthalmology space. Thank you very much. I'd love to hear questions.
Hi, Samantha. Love that you've got Louisiana in your presentation and what you'd like to do here. So that's really helpful. My question for you is about your 2 different use cases. So you said you've got a research use case basically to generate revenue prior to FDA approval where you can have a clinical use case. And so my question for you is, when you say research, what kind of research do you mean? And do you actually find that your models can be trained for research in the same way that they can be trained for clinical practice, or the cutoffs need to be different?
Yes, that's a good question. So our research use only, investigation use only customers are typically trials developing neurotherapeutics or just looking into biomarkers for neurodegenerative disease. So some of the customers in our pipeline, they have MS studies going, longitudinal Alzheimer's studies. Some of them are very small, some are with emerging pharma companies. For our AI, we are specifically looking to quantify changes in the layers of the retina. So our algorithm is great at doing that now for general neurodegeneration, remyelination. But what we would like to do is add in more predictive and diagnostic measures. So the data that comes in from these research groups will be helpful in a clinical use case as well. What's critical is longitudinal data in a diverse patient population. And for us, multiple types of OCT machines.
Hello, is it on? Yes, okay. So in following up on that question, do you then have rights to some of that data to then productize it?
Yes, so our contracts specifically do not give us ownership of the data, but it gives us the right to train our algorithms with the data. So it's de-identified when it reaches.
Right. Okay, great. A couple of other questions here. Is your sensitivity and specificity the same to conventional OCT? And you mentioned image quality being better, but you probably wouldn't want to suddenly be way more sensitive if insurers don't want to be paying for too big a capture or too much follow-on testing.
Yes, that's very true. We've heard that from insurers too.
Yeah.
So what we look at is not so much specificity and sensitivity, it's reproducibility and accuracy as well as speed.
Right. Yeah. So area under the curve can matter, but if it leads to further testing, parsing out sensitivity and specificity can be very valuable.
Sure.
And that goes to my last question, which is, have you been talking to insurers or ERISA plan managers about pre-approval for MRI? Because that's really a big sweet spot for something like this, to actually demonstrate the clinical, evidence of a disease
Sure.
MRI is increasingly being clamped down. It's so expensive. So it's 10 times much more money than your
Yes.
product.
Yes, we've spoken with this at length with insurers. So when it comes to MS, for example, they're kind of leading the edge with bringing OCT into clinical practice. What we're hearing from insurers is that they would like to see OCT. It would never replace MRI, but be a between MRI objective data point. And in that way, we would have to demonstrate this with longitudinal testing, but showing that we're actually reducing disease burden by catching disease progression more quickly. So with MS, for example, what's really critical is conversion from cis clinically isolated syndrome to MS, as well as transition from relapsing, remitting MS to primary progressive MS. Those are very different burdens of treatment, different treatments.
But I mean, even for the first MRI, right?
Yes, sure. Yes, yeah. And for us, so instead of having to have multiple MRIs to track dissemination in space, OCT is now seen as a additional landmarker, the retina, that can be used to make these diagnoses.
They're probably going to go portable for ophthalmology uses. Can you confirm that you meet all the criteria that an ophthalmologist could use this and
Yes.
extend?
Yes, we do. We designed it specifically to be as good as and slightly better than the typical OCT machine in an ophthalmology clinic.
I actually had reimbursement model. Have you explored how difficult those can be to enforce in certain clinical settings? I mean, tracking the revenue and reimbursement, which can sometimes have a really long delay of even 180 days, and trying to get that data monthly, you may want to explore. Maybe this is just more advice than a question, but you really may want to explore what's going to smooth that out
Yes.
most
So-
easily.
Yeah, I agree. What we'll likely do is track scan volume, which our machines track automatically and bill by scan volume. So our customers, we've asked about that alternative method because it is hard to track reimbursement, and they've given a thumbs up. for
Okay.
now. So we'll see
And
when we
last
get to
question, sorry to dominate here, all the questions, but the last one is just, let's see, what was it? Have you validated this in different positions? If somebody's laying down, you're looking at multiple retina layers, and some of those are going to be a little more engorged with blood if somebody's laying down. Have you done validation for these different positions?
So we've done different positions that are still sitting. Our pilot with Johns Hopkins is actually at the bedside. So they specifically want to use our device in patients who are laying down, and it will be a longitudinal study. So that's when we can validate that.
Fantastic
you.
presentation. Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
you go ahead. I'm going to text mine to Jen, so you go ahead now.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, you have us jumping to ask questions. And I love the way you thought through the revenue sharing model. What do you see as some of the largest challenges to reaching that profitability goal that you outlined?
Yes, so it will always be adoption. Even though OCT is part of becoming more part of neurology clinical practice, it's not the go-to. There's still a level of patient or clinician education that we have to do. I mean, thankfully, in some spaces like MS, they are doing a lot of that work for us, but I think it will come down to our ability to properly train the clinic on how to use this information, what to do with it. We've made everything as simple as possible based on their feedback. So just a traffic light system, for example. Yes, there's a change, or no, there's no significant change. But I think the biggest hurdle will be education.
Thank you. Sorry, my question was about the sort of funding path.
Sure.
So you've raised 4.7, you're raising $1 million pre-commercial,
Yes.
but then you've got suitors around the table. Help me understand what your series is and what you need to actually,
Sure.
because when you do a usage agreement, you actually have to have a pretty high touch sales organization to make sure that the technology is being used. So I'm curious on the $1 million leads to what, and then, so maybe you can just give me a little bit of your funding path.
Yes. So we to date we've raised 4.7 million, and that's half of it has been NSF phase 1 and 2 SBIR funding, and then the other half has been dilutive funding. So our current raise, $1 million, we're very capital efficient, whether we want to be or not. But that will take us all the way to commercial launch. So that's, for example, the first 20 or so units that we can build out for customers. We already have a contract manufacturer. We're located in their space. They're ISO 1345 medical device manufacturer. So they can take care of inventory, shipping, all of that. But with these first customers, most of them are major medical systems. So our goal with that is to put one device. If they like it, it's easier to scale up within their setting. But we will have to build out a sales team. We just brought on a salesperson now, paid for by one of our VCs, which is very nice. But we'll have to build that out more for a Series A.
For your Series A. So do you have a sense of the million gets you to what point, and then what the raise would be beyond that? So you're 1 on 10 now. What do you think the A looks like?
Yeah, so 1 million will get us through FDA clearance and first market launch. Our Series A will need to be 5 to 10 million, depending on how much revenue we generate from early sales. That will cover, we'll start raising that after we submit to the FDA. We already have Series A investors who've been following us for years, and they've made it very clear that they could possibly come in on a term sheet once we submit, and the first tranche would come after we receive clearance. But during that waiting period is when we'll start building out our sales team and raising Series A.
I see the huge opportunity in MS as well as Alzheimer's. Like Dave, there's a low-hanging fruit here with the general eye clinics, and given the health disparities in eye health that are well documented and just unaddressed across this entire country, is there a strategy to use this technology to increase access to even just eye screening for underserved populations? I mean, I see that. I think that's what Dave was getting at as well. Huge opportunity, huge market opportunity, but also just value for the community. And I just didn't hear that.
Yes, I agree. So in that follow-on market, it includes the retail optical stores. It also includes, and these are people already in our pipeline, mobile eye clinics, especially in Canada, for example, very rural. We've had a lot of traveling optometrists come to say, we have all the goodies in our bag except OCT. We can't fit a machine in our bag. So yes, I absolutely agree. I'd say a good percentage of our pipeline are more rural clinics that are looking, they're clinicians who have moved from the urban centers, the major institutions, to start their own clinics, and they would like access to something that's a bit easier for their patient populations to get a hold of. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.